Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We will call the Environmental Services Utility Board meeting to order for Monday, June 17th, 2024. At this time, we'll begin with public comments. Seeing no public comments, we'll move on to item 2, and that's roll call.
Mayor Curtis.
Present.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Here.
Alderman Cruz. Here. Alderman O'Brien.
Here.
Alderman O'Singa.
Present.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Jones. Clerk Gall.
Here.
We do have a quorum. Oh, please let the record reflect Alderman Jones is present also. Before you, we have the minutes from May 20th, 2024. Before we accept a motion on those, Director Hall has some comments regarding the minutes, correct?
Yes, there are a couple of corrections in the minutes. On page 2, for sure, there is an
I'm going to have you do the microphone, sorry.
On page 2, I have Alderwoman Jones when it should be Alderwoman Johnson. And then further along, there is where I should have said Alderman Osinga, it says Alderwoman Osinga. So those are the corrections.
I thought I was changing.
He's been called worse. So. All right, so is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 20th, 2024? We have 2 corrections so far.
So move, Mayor.
We have a motion from Alderman Osinga. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Alderwoman Lewis. Is there any questions, comments, additions, or changes besides the 2 corrections from making Alderwoman Jones to Alderwoman Johnson and Alderman Osinga? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Cruz.
Aye.
Alderman O'Brien.
Aye.
Alderman Osinga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Gall.
Aye.
Thank you.
The minutes are approved. Next, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the bills. You should have the bills in front of you. We have the bills from June 3rd that were in the amount of $170,353.71. And we have the bills for tonight in the amount of $762,466.89 for a total of $932,820.60. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Alderwoman Swanson. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Alderman Osinga. Is there any questions or comments regarding the bills? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Cruz.
Aye.
Alderman O'Brien.
Aye.
Alderman Osinga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Gall.
Aye.
Thank you.
The bills are approved. We'll now move into our monthly activity reports. So we'll start with the ESU Street and Alley Report. Mr. Hassick?
As James would say, everything's in the report, but a couple things to note. We are about 3 weeks out for alley pickup with the brush. There's a continuous demand for it, so we're creeping our way through our 40 miles worth of alleys to get all that accomplished. So what we've been telling residents is we're 3 weeks out. So there are no special pickups for brush. We just get there when we can, because if we start jumping from one side of town to the other, we're never going to get it accomplished. So we just started back on the west side today. That's where we always start. So they'll be through in about 3 weeks. Let's see what else. Tree work, we kind of do what we can where we can. We only had one tree limb issue the other night with a limb falling down during those high winds. So That was good on our part. Our arborist does a fantastic job going out, identifying trees and issues and resolving issues when he sees them. For grass mowing, 5 crews are out every single day, maintaining what we currently have to mow as far as the lots that the city has, Kankakee County trustee lots, and any code tickets. So I believe that probably next week we can cut some of those crews down because the grass is already dying, and I think once they trim it up this week, it'll be pretty good, so we can start allocating those resources to other projects. Sweepers are out daily, our dirt patchers out daily. I'm sure you've seen that up and down the streets. We kind of hit different sections each week, so that way everyone's getting their fair share in their ward. So if you got something that needs to be dirt patched, reach out to James. He's kind of the guy who handles that schedule. So other than that, those guys have been doing really well. And for the miscellaneous, one thing, if you guys note, Jessica answered, our administrative assistant, she answered over 450 calls last month. So that's not just answering them, that's getting people answers for the questions that they have, directing them to the right departments so they can answer those questions. So, excuse me, she really does a fantastic job. So I'd like to recognize her, and the calls just keep coming. I mean, so she does everything she can, and we're very happy to have her. So that's all I got.
Any questions for Mr. Hassick? Alderman Osinga.
Probably already know the answer, but I see down in the miscellaneous, Pete's pickup 120 tons, 420 South Greenwood 49 tons. They're billed for all that, correct?
Yes. So once we collect all the tickets, we generate, man hours, equipment hours, what we pay for tonnage, which I think is around $75 a ton. So that all gets forwarded to essentially legal is who we forwarded that to, since I believe they're the ones dealing with that. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that was quite a project. Pickup Pete's took us about 2 days to complete, and then the other one on 420 South Greenwood took us a whole day. So those were yards that desperately need to be cleaned up, and we left it better than we found it. So if you make your way towards 520 North Fairmont or 420 South Greenwood, those lots look really good. So, yes, sir.
Thank you. Do we, you have the numbers yet? Have you gotten the numbers, or are you still working on
Got the what?
the numbers for that project?
The numbers? No, we have them.
You haven't got, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I was just wondering, how many people do we have doing trees?
So right now we have 4 tree cutters. We only have 2 aerial trucks. So there's only so much aerial work that we can do. The other tree cutters, when they're available, they'll go cut like ground cover. So, things that grow up just along abandoned houses or along railroad tracks or whatever that, becomes an eyesore or something, those individuals clean that up. So, but we have 4 tree cutters. And those crews usually consist of 4 people. So right now we have 26 personnel.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Alderman O'Brien.
Frank, thank you for your work at 420 South Greenwood and Pickup Pete's. That's very much appreciated. You mentioned the volume of calls that the administrative assistant in Public Works is receiving. Is that a typical, in this case, the month of May, or is that unusually high?
So we asked Jessica to start keeping track of her calls in January. So in years previous, I don't know.
Okay.
I just know that sitting in my office doing things, that phone rings nonstop.
Yeah.
We have a large bell that's outside in the break area where the guys take their break, and it's nonstop. So in order to compare it to last year, I have no idea. But we'll
No,
keep that
going
information
forward,
going
yeah.
forward for
Okay.
sure.
It just seems like a lot of calls.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how she does it all, but she does a phenomenal job. And a lot of the things that she does, she doesn't really have to come to us for answers. She's been there 8 years, so she kind of knows the ins and outs of what we do and how to answer people. So,
Great. Thank you.
yep.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Next, we'll move on to the ESU Technical Services Report. Ms. Hall?
Good evening, everyone. The technical services run in a routine manner. And just so you know, we have the siren scheduled for this Wednesday Although we will be closed, I will be communicating with Brand F Communications to make sure that all of our sirens are working properly. We have summer help that started. We finally have a full paint crew of 2 guys. It took us a while to get that second person. So they've been working together for 3 days, painting the poles on East Court. And I do have someone in the office that's doing some data entry to help complete 2023 for IDOT. Also, there's a pole at Apache Path and Navajo Court. This is a ComEd pole, so this would be the 3rd ward. And ComEd is working on getting that up as we speak. Alderman Marczak, tonight I want to let you know that the pole with the bad feed on station should be done before July.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a pole that's right across from the restaurant, the Martinez restaurant. That pole does not work, and Alderman Marczak continued to stay on us until we can get that listed to get repaired. Okay. Also, I'm working on new literature for this fiscal year for the MS4, just getting our residents aware of how we should take care of the intakes and just making sure they understand how that relates to the river. And we have a damaged mast arm pole over on Station and Wall, and we have Outson right now taking care of that. They've taken it down and will be doing the repair. That's all I have.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Hall? All good, thank you. We'll move into the Utility Sewer Services Report, and Superintendent Newton.
Only one sewer call this month, so that was good for the crew. They could get out and do their preventative cleaning. They got a little over 2 miles of that done this month. A couple of things that I want to touch on. Mantino Wet Well, as you know, we've had some grease troubles there. Still kind of maintaining. Not getting better, but it's not getting worse, and still working with Ryan and the industries to get a long-term solution on that. It's moving along, but pre-treatment, getting that all in place takes time. Guard Creek. So the electrical components are taking much longer to get than anticipated. GAI, they're making double orders, trying to go through different vendors, but still having a hard time. There is some kind of progress going on that, but still not to a permanent solution. The pumps that were awarded at the bid, those have been ordered. We're looking at maybe 6 weeks or so to get those in. That'll be a big help when we get those in. We can stop renting the pumps that we have on site now. We can do our own bypass pumping. That'll help, I think, with OT hours and such. The other thing that I wanted to point out to you is that tomorrow we will be working with Robinson Engineering to do the kickoff for the baseline televising and cleaning. Remember, we're doing that in-house. That'll be a big deal for our crew. 4 of the crew members went through NASCO training to get certified so that they can work with Robinson Engineering and kind of speak the same language when it comes to coding pipeline pipe defects. They being Robinson are done with the manhole assessment, so still awaiting those kind of findings. Hopefully Joe will have something for me tomorrow when we meet. Other than that, just wanted to make note that our MS4 for 2024 has been completed and turned into the IEPA. So far I have not heard anything from them, so no news is good news. I'm sure everything's fine. It's just that in the years to come, they're always updating and changing those specifications and requirements. So we'll change as necessary.
Any questions for Mr. Newton? Alderwoman Johnson?
Thank you. On the report, it says there was construction updates. There were 6 of them.
Yes, so we did 6 in-house repairs this month.
So what kind of construction are they?
It's usually storm storm infrastructure related. So that would be things that we do like hydro excavate and fix a storm line pipe or fix the intake.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Lab Services Monthly Report. Mr. McGinnis? And before you get started, we do want to say congratulations. You just got your master's, correct?
Yeah.
In Business Administration, is that what it was?
That's correct.
So he just completed his class and turned in his diploma, so thank you for, congratulations to you on getting that done. That's a big accomplishment, so
Yeah.
well done.
Good job.
The lab's running in a routine manner. Just a few things that I wanted to let you know about. So we talked about last month that the US EPA came by, did a whole audit of our pretreatment program. I still have no updates from them on that. They did say about 60 days, so hopefully by next month's meeting we'll have a report from them. But again, that was no major findings from them, and they were excited about our program. The other thing is there's a requirement that the Illinois EPA requires us to do. It's an annual requirement. We have some additional testing that we have to perform. We've begun that testing. We expect that to go well. There's no reason for us not to perform that well, and that gets turned in by the end of August. So you should know by the end of August results from that.
Can you elaborate a little bit? You talked about, I guess, your team's doing probably more than is required for testing. That was one of the things the EPA mentioned, that you're not only doing the minimum standards, but you're doing probably a higher level than most municipalities or most areas.
Yeah, that's correct. Most municipalities run a pretreatment program where the industries do most of the testing, and we don't. We do most of the testing for the industries. There's only a couple that do some of their own testing, but we also do the same testing, so there's some redundancy there. But we do that in an effort to make sure that the industries are complying with the standards that are set for them, and we don't want them to be able to, come up with random results. We want to make sure that the results that are there for those industries are accurate and correct.
Any questions for Lab Services? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, we will now move on to financials. Do we have those?
No, is that not it?
Financials for the month, or no? We have the budget, correct?
Well, I've got a note on the financials. I did not reprint them. There really hasn't been a substantial change. But I did want to note that we had about $40,000 more in expenditures that went through, the bulk of which was a write-off of accounts receivable that dated back to Armstrong prior to AHF taking over. There is a possibility we'll collect a portion of that. We still have to wait for the bankruptcy to finish. But the likelihood is we're only going to get about 1% of it, so I went ahead and took the whole hit because we knew we had a good year to write it against. But we also had an additional $70,000 in revenue. I had accrued for the revenues for industrial and residential sewer, and both came in quite a bit higher. So we're only about $30,000 different, and it is in addition to what we had listed as the income. And I don't foresee there'll be much in the way of changes from the audit. I did pass out draft 2 for the ESU budget. Okay.
We'll come back to that in just a second.
Okay.
We'll do that. So any questions? As mentioned, kind of no real changes to end of the year, except for, sounds like a $30,000 increase to the positive. So as we get everything accrued back, we'll do a lot like the general budget, I assume, and come back sometime probably in July or August and give you some end of the year numbers, so. All right, we'll move on to old business, hydro plant update. Superintendent Newton.
Not too much to share. There's some equipment that we can get looked at and possibly overhauled locally, so we are working to get that done, trying to get a scope of work on some of the components that we have, and still working with NORCAN. They're looking for a company that might be able to repair that gearbox, because the gearbox for Unit 1 is it's just needs a complete rebuild. So, yeah, still, it's slow going, but we are still moving forward.
I was just going to pull up. So I did ask Superintendent Newton to give his best estimate of what this hydro plant is looking like. We made a lot of assumptions right now, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this information here. We did for the turbines, you're looking at a cost of roughly, with blade replacement, gearbox rehab and everything, you're looking at about $700,000 per turbine. We think that is the high-end cost for number one. We did take that across line item 2 for the second turbine and the third turbine. Why we think those will come in cheaper. We want to be very conservative and say that we are going to use $700,000 for each turbine. Why we don't expect that to be 2.1 total for all three. We want to use those numbers. Right now, the estimated cost, all in on the project, we're just a hair under 2.9 million. 2.869 million is an estimated cost. We're hoping that'll be much cheaper than that. As I said all along, I thought it'd be somewhere in the range of 2.5 million. Hopefully the turbines come in a little bit cheaper, but we'll see that. To date, we have expended just a hair under $300,000 on the hydro plant, roughly $295,350. So we just wanted to get those as some updates to you about what we're looking at spending there and how we're allocating money for that. But the biggest thing right now is the two big things is the engineering for the pump, and the second piece is the roof has been completed.
That's correct.
The roof is done. Langlois Roofing was a low bid on that. That has been completed. And then waiting on turbine 1 to be completely rehabbed and finished. And once that's done, then they'll bring that here and we can start on the second one. Any questions about the hydro plant? Alderman Marzak.
I'm just curious about the pump. I've never been able to get any real concrete answers on how many pumps have been replaced in the 30 years.
For the years, to the best of my knowledge, 2.
If it's only 2, and at the time they were estimated at $6,000 a pump, why would we just re-engineer the whole thing instead of just replacing that pump then?
The biggest thing is where it's located at right now is almost impossible to get to. It doesn't take underwater dive teams and some different things, so it's actually relocating where it'd be easy to fix and repair. But the other thing is making sure that it actually takes the river water in. So it's a little above my pay grade. I'll go to Mr. Newton here, but I don't think it's just as easy as, from what we're being told by some local plumbers and by the experts that deal with this, none of them have said it's just simple as swapping out the pump and making it work again at $6,000. They're saying there's more to it than that. What that is, I'm not an engineer, so that's also coming from Lady Plumbing, I believe, has looked at some of that, and then
And working with
consultant.
IMEG.
Yeah,
What's that?
And working with IMEG.
so we don't have the numbers yet, but we'll be getting them at some point, and we'll bring those before this group to talk about. So, because once we get that done, we can obviously fire up one of the turbines. So, okay, thank you. We have no unfinished business, so we're going to move right into new business. And Assistant Comptroller Rogers, if you've got draft 2 here for us, if you guys would like to go over draft 2, I don't think there's very many changes, but I'm going to let them lead the way. So, Assistant Comptroller.
Yeah, we were able to firm this up a little more. We made the adjustment on that clerical salaries that was questioned the last time. That is a new position. It's being budgeted for 10 months to give us time to get recruitment on that. And that is an admin specialist for ESU and the supervisor. And then I did want to explain the breakout again. So we had a request to break out the benefits between the departments for administration and DPW. So although it looks like we had significant reduction, those end up popping up later under the other department, the DPW, with the same note saying that it was split out between 10 and 50. Other than that, most of the changes that went through were not super significant. And it did mean that we had a little additional money to put into the funds allowed for unforeseen projects on the capital report. But all of the capital items are the same except for that number that changed by about 100,000.
So before you, you're going to see a budget for the upcoming year that would have a income of $142,453 in revenue over expenses. And if you go to the capital sheet, you'll see some line items there, but in particular, you're going to see some funds for unforeseen projects of $610,288. We could easily spend that money. There's lots of projects we'll talk about here of where we can spend that on properties, different things. I'll tell you one thing, we upped the money on light poles this year when working with Ms. Hall to $100,000. That doesn't even make a dent. We could probably buy a lot more light poles that are out there. In particular, if you come along Fair Street, the curve on Route 50 and Hobby there, we're missing 5 there, correct? 6. Okay, so we got 6 poles that are not up there because everybody seems to think it's Mario Brothers and they should take them out. And so that is kind of a dark area, so we've, as she mentioned, the 4 poles are in, so why IDOT's going to be redoing that road and everything, we just thought waiting 2 years to have that curve that dark is just not a good situation. We still have a lot of our decorative poles that, they're like magnets, people seem to hit them. It seems to be 50-50 with insurance on those. So we could probably spend some more money on light poles, in my opinion, and even with the track cabinets, but then there's just a lot there. So we're in a solid state right now, so we did put in there a little over $1.5 million of capital so we can continue to make improvements as necessary through the city. And just to clarify, I know I wasn't at the last ESU meeting, the new position for clerical services, that is an administrative specialist that is for the ESU department. As you heard Mr. Hassick talk about, Jessica is an administrative, works in their department just for DPW, 450 calls. Between all the other departments, where it's sewer services, technical services, they get just as many phone calls too, and we want somebody to be able to answer their phone calls, help with some things like that, so that's why we put that in there to assist with that. I'm a big proponent of having a live voice, try to answer the phone when somebody calls, so. The timeline, we're looking at the ESU budget here. We would run this concurrent with our general operating budget. And the plan moving forward with that is we would have a first draft for you. You've got this draft here. I don't think there's any changes that we would see tweaking from this here for ESU. We'd bring both of these to City Council on July 1st, have first reading only. And then on July 15th, we would have a public hearing for the general operating budget, and then we would have second reading on July 15th for the ESU budget and the general operating budget for passage. But what you see here for ESU is what we fully expect we'd bring forward to you on July 1st for first reading. We then obviously we'll have the final reading on July 15th. We'll also have ESU that night on July 15th if there's any last minute questions. Any questions or comments for the ESU fiscal 25 budget?
I just got one thing. I'm glad that there's finally a secretary becoming over to the ESU, because I know Claire been doing this a lot for a couple jobs for a long time. So I'm glad to see that there's getting some help over there.
Alderwoman Johnson?
Under Sewer Services Group 20, line 401, can you remind me what that position is for?
Sewer services, so that is an item that is unfilled right now. I asked to remain it in the budget, so that was Zach's previous job. Am I correct on that there? So we have not, I'll be candid about it, we have not backfilled that. Superintendent Newton believes he can handle the job. I believe he could handle it also. I have kind of fought against that. I do believe that we do have to create a leadership in place, and I'll use the examples I use with Superintendent Newton. Hopefully, he's on vacation, enjoying some great cruise overseas or something. If there's a sewer problem, who steps up at that time if he's on vacation? So there needs to be a system of order for a second person in command, and we have that in most of our departments, not all of them, but most of them, for that reason. If one day Mr. Newton hits that 1.1 million Powerball, I don't know, he might want to say, I'm done at the city of Kankakee. So maybe not, maybe you don't want to continue working. But again, we need to have that transition to leadership. So I have kept that position in the budget and have talked about, I believe, backfilling that. Why I believe he can handle it. The goal is never to put double duties on him. He's doing a great job right now, but I still think that's a position that should be filled there as an operations manager, just like technical services, lab services, and DPW. So that's what that is in that position. At this point, it's a vacant position. If you look at some of the numbers from last year's fiscal budget, it would shift a little bit because we did promote Zach from operations manager to sewer services into superintendent. You probably know better than me. Was that October, November time? So we had about 6 months there of some savings.
Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. On the revenues for the budget, looking at, in particular, the industrial sewer revenues, I assume, and we've talked about that we try to be conservative in all of those revenues. I assume that number is a conservative number?
I'll defer to Assistant Comptroller and Comptroller, but I believe they're very conservative, but I'll let them answer that.
Very conservative. When I talked with Brian, he was confident that we would probably be closer to 12 million. But we weren't confident enough to put it in the budget, so we're probably $1 million under where we expect it to be.
Great, thank you.
Alderman, just with all of the volatility, I think is the right word, in the economy right now, and with what other businesses are going through as well, we just think that those are the reasons why we need to hold steady, put the proper increase in, but not the full increase at this time.
Any other questions or comments regarding the budget? Again, ESU is in a healthy state right now. It's allowing us, as I said, in the past year, buy some equipment, do some major repairs. I can tell you right now, just at the admin building, we spend a lot of money on HVAC here. If you go to the admin building, some days 61 degrees in there and you need to wear a parka. And there's other days that it's a little warm, so it just depends. And so we've got to spend some significant dollars there to get that whole system repaired also. But there are some other things. I know DPW's got a few pieces of equipment that they would like to see to help make their job easier. Those are some things that we could consider. Again, that's why at this point I feel we're being very conservative with revenue. Expenses are pretty tight and solid. We want to keep a pretty large capital budget right now to accomplish the things that we need. Quite frankly, as we're working on, we'll see how hydro plant shakes out. Maybe some of that money out of capital goes towards hydro plant, getting it done, what we need to have done there, along with the ARPA money that's been allocated. Okay. If there is no questions, just because we won't have another ESU budget, please take a look at this. We got 2 weeks till we have our first reading on July 1st. But if you don't mind, I would take a recommendation to approve this to full city council.
So moved.
We have a motion by Alderman O'Brien to pass the ESU budget for fiscal 20 year 25 to city council. Is there a second?
Second it.
We have a second from Alderwoman Swanson. Is there any questions or comments? And again, there's time. If you see something as you review this, we can tweak with this over the next 10 days. And then we'll have a first reading. There'll still be time if there's something that needs to be finalized. Seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Lewis.
Aye.
Alderman Prude.
Aye.
Alderman O'Brien.
Aye.
Alderman Ozinga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Jones.
Aye.
Clerk Gall.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We have no need for an executive session tonight. And so it is now one of our Kind of nice, 6:35, quick meetings. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion from Alderman Prude. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Alderwoman Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned till city council at 7 o'clock. Thank you.